one of the things when we got into this, there was a lot of hope from farmers that they were going to do this as a cash crop. I've talked to several farmers, and it was divided between, we want this because, prices on other things are not as good, to all the way to other farmers who said, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole for two reasons, because it's marijuana, or even more so because it's a very difficult crop to grow on the outdoors. So the feedback on that one, I'm not sure it's settled yet, but your thoughts?
Well, I think it's always going to be mixed when you're talking about a medical program. But the reality is, if you're going to grow a medical-grade marijuana plant, you need to do it indoors. And so I think that's where we came down with the legislature.
Well, and I think the testimony on this was also validated when you see a lot of the debacles that went on in other states, Oklahoma for one.
Yes, it's impossible.
Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. It's impossible for them to really track down where all the locations are because fields get large, trees get cut down, and you plant new crops. I mean, it's really hard for people to track that. So the indoor solution really solves it.
That said, there is nothing that says a farmer couldn't install that indoor on their farm.
Oh, absolutely not. They can.
Yeah. Do we have some farmers who are doing that, as far as you know?
I know that there are quite a few farmers that have multiple acres that are planning to either sell or lease that land because it's zoned agricultural, so you can grow on it. So I think that's the solution that they're going to have.
Is there anybody talking about a possible co-op of farmers getting into the business as one?
I haven't heard anything about that. I think that'd be great if they did, but I haven't heard anything.
Maybe we just created an idea then. So
we should go in on it together. That'd be us.
Well, but the back lot is not big enough to classify as a farm, so we got a problem with that.
That's
one.
right.
I haven't owned a tractor in a long time. So what do you think we are now as far as the legislature is concerned?
I think we're moving towards a solution. I think the Senate is probably going to concur. I'm not sure, but the changes from the House and Senate version are so minimal that I think that they'll be coming up with a solution real fast.
Okay, let me delve into that a little bit, because to me, between 3.5 and 3 is minimal. Do the growers out there, the people who have the history of this, understand that 0.5, by the time you talk about your customer base or the patient list, that adds up over a year period? Is that a big fighting point, or would you could? And it could be changed later, of course.
Right, and I think that the fact that this can get changed over time is really going to be helpful for the growth of the program. The half an ounce a month, while we were sad to see that go, we understand that that's a great starting point because most customers are not going to be at the higher limit, especially at the beginning when they're trying to figure out what works best for them.
How will they know where they are? There's no doctor who's going to tell you, I want you to consume the entire thing.
Right, which is why at the beginning of the program, having less is good for them to figure out how much do they actually need to consume.
But would you recommend changing that or facing that again in the 2023 session?
I think that's a 2023 question. I think that's something that once patients start receiving medication, then we can start talking about how much more we should add.
Well, let's go over the other changes in there. The other one was the Department of Agriculture being involved in this, and the one bill took it out. Of course, the House bill took it out.
Yep.
I'm guessing you don't have any qualms with that.
Not at all. It's easier to interface with one department rather than two. I do think that the Department of Agriculture would have brought a lot of expertise in seeing it as an agricultural product, but having one department as opposed to two, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I was saying, I forgot what the third issue was that they changed on here. What was that?
They gave municipalities more autonomy to determine where grow facilities can locate.
I think one of the things they had was there a ban on industrial parks for the most part, as far as commercial districts, and they couldn't be there.
Industrial parks were permitted. It's larger commercial areas were not, and now it's up to the city's discretion.
I got you. Ken, did that have to do with the actual growers, or did it have to do with the retail shops?
The growers. The retail shops were already at a commercial space.
We've covered a lot already in this one segment, and I'm wondering, what else is there to talk about? And I want to pick your brain on this one, but some of the areas that you think need to be improved in this are the members of your association, the Mississippi, the Medical Marijuana Association. Are they happy with this?
They're very happy. I mean, really, the thing is that they're very eager. They're ready to get started. We've been at this bill for months, this whole process for years. I think they're really just ready to get started.
Do you think they're placated as far as the people who wanted this to happen now that the legislature has taken it up? Because I know they were mad after the initiative was struck down by the state Supreme Court, and they were certainly mad after the governor did not call a special session. Now that it's been done in this manner, and the diversion of taxes go back to the people one way or the other, do you think that placates those folks?
I think so. I think that the people who have been waiting for a long time are just ready to see it end. I think that the process we've gone through, while it has been long and arduous, the people are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Do you think this is a better bill than we started off with in Initiative 65?
I think overall, yes. I think it's probably the best legislative bill for medical marijuana in the states.
But instead of being put directly into the Constitution and the wording of that bill also, it just seems like, because it gives the medical marijuana people in the state a chance to change things like the three. If it were three in the Constitution, you couldn't change it.
Right. I think that we've got a lot of legislators working on fixing the ballot initiative process, and I think part of the problem was that the only solution we could get was constitutional, and having a statutory one would probably solve that. I don't think we would have gone with a constitutional route if a statutory one was available.
What else do you want to see? As a matter of fact, let's take an idea of this thing is rolling now. Give me a little bit of a timetable how this is going to happen.
So let's say it passes in the next week or two. We're probably looking at 4 months before applications start, and then another month before they start being given. So seeds will probably go in the ground sometime in July at the earliest. Then you've got about 4 to 6 months, depending on how things go with growing, before they're actually grown, dried, tested for patients to actually consume. And then I'm hopeful that December or January of either December of this year or January next year, patients actually start receiving medicine.
How do you get a head start as far as the bricks and mortar places?
Well, property is a big portion of that, and as long as you're purchasing your property,
Let's talk about when we come back. What will it look like? And I mean, how do you do that now? Because the law states that the municipalities, do they already have something signed by the mayor that the people don't know about? I mean,
some do, and I'll tell you about it.
Oh, yeah. Really? Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting. From Ken Newburger, not Barry, Ken Newburger. Ken, thank you, sir. Hang on. We'll talk more about how this materializes itself on the main streets of Mississippi and hometowns all across the state. We'll do. Ken Newburger is with us, Executive Director, Mississippi Medical Marijuana Association. The organization continues to grow. How many people do you guys have now on board?
We have current members about 36.
About 36. Mm-hmm. Now, when we left the last segment, we were talking to you about how do you do this? Because I asked you, and you gave me the timeline. You said seeds in the ground by July. What's the normal maturation of a crop?
For the first crop, which usually takes a little longer than all subsequent crops, about 4 to 6 months.
About 4 to 6 months. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking, what about the processing plants? Are they going to be ready to go and they're going to be ready to handle that volume?
They will.
Because we can't do any of this out of state, right?
Correct. Everything will be done in state, and a lot of processing plants and testing facilities are really looking at what equipment to buy. A lot of this is still going to be done through the Department of Health's regulations, so they're not sure yet what they should be purchasing.
So the processing plants are basically on paper right now. They haven't been built, as far as you know.
Some of them have buildings, empty buildings, ready to go. Because you can slot in the equipment. It's just you need to know what equipment to buy.
We were talking earlier, and one of the reasons you're not going to have every willy-nilly in here because it's you could be taking a pretty big loss. Mm-hmm. There are some people who got into this business because they thought it was a cash cow in Oklahoma, and there's an overproduction, and some people are going bankrupt.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen here. We've been recommending for everybody who's looking to get into the business really 4 things. One, get your business plan and legal counsel together, talk to local municipalities, because I mean ultimately that's going to be who's zoning and who's determining where you can and can't locate, and then also hold off until you know for the last minute what you're going to be doing.
And we're getting close to that.
Yes.
And does that answer the question of, you said you guys are up and running? We don't know which municipalities will be, which councilmen and mayors are going to be voting on this or not. And when they put this in, I guess there's going to have to be a vote. There's going to have to be one of the meetings is going to have to be a vote on this.
Yes, within the first 90 days of passage of the bill, they'll have to determine when they want to meet and what they want to talk about.
And if there is a no vote, we do not want it in our municipality, then what happens?
Then it's not there, and there is a process through which the people could put together a referendum. But if that referendum fails, then it stands for 2 years that you can't change it.
You get just 2 years before you can have another referendum.
Correct.
Ken, how's this work as far as the county's concerned? Because a city could say no, we don't want it, but the county could do otherwise. Could they not?
Yes.
So the same thing is applicable to the Board of Supervisors.
Correct.
Referendum also?
Yes.
What does it cost to get into the business, just as a retailer and also as a grower?
You know, I've been asked that a lot, and you can kind of ballpark it. It depends on where you're located and what you want to do. But I mean, most dispensaries, you're talking somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million up front to get going.
Whoa! Dispensaries?
Mm-hmm.
This is not growers. How much would it cost the growers?
It depends on the size. If you're a small grower, you're talking about, if you're a micro grower, probably about $100,000 just to get going, because you got to get the seeds, you got to get all the right equipment. I mean, we're going to have higher standards of how to grow this in the state, and you're going to have to comply.
Is the association going to be bringing in some people with some expertise in places that have this now and have had it for a while, where they have some experience?
Absolutely. Once the legislative session's over, we're going to be putting together a lot of different resources and speaking tours of people who have done this to bring people up to speed in Mississippi.
I would imagine also on not only the vendors or the bricks and mortar buildings, that retail shops, but certainly as far as the growers are concerned, it's probably going to be some pretty good salaries paid to the people who do that. How many people does it take to run one farm like that?
Let's say it's a 10,000 square foot grow facility. You're probably talking about somewhere between 40 and 60 employees.
But between 40 and 60. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, as far as the processing plants, do we have some people who said, yes, we're going to do it? Where are they located in the state? Do you know?
They're located all over. The biggest hubs are really DeSoto County, the greater Jackson area, and the coast, really between Gulfport and Ocean Springs.
Now, when we talk about a processing plant, what are we talking about? What does it look like?
It can be.
It's not, in my mind, it's not like a cotton gin, I'm sure. But what does it look like?
It can be really large. I've seen small ones. They're only about 2,000 square feet. It's just a machine. You put it in. You type in what you want it to come out on the other side. How much of the plant you want to extract and of what kind of materials. And then I've also seen large scale, 20,000 square foot processing facilities where they make it, one thing into a vapor, one thing into a cartridge, one thing into just oil. It can get really elaborate.
What was the final deal on vaping in this bill?
It's permitted.
It is permitted. Mm-hmm. Is that going to be, that processing plant will also be doing the ultimate package? It's going to be ready for store for the shelves? The processing plant? Will the packaging be done at the processing plant?
I think that's something that'll have to be covered in the regulations of where the packaging is done.
And what type of packaging will be allowed?
Correct.
Can more than one entity, I guess we'll put it this way, can an entity buy or have more than one outlet?
You can have as many as 5 dispensaries, and then of all other types of licenses, you can have 1.
Unlike the wine and liquor bill.
Correct.
So you can have up to 5?
Correct.
And that is statewide, not only in one city or something.
That's right. Statewide.
Okay. I'm learning some things. That's what that bill says. Mm-hmm. How many of those have to be from Mississippi? As far as is there a percentage of Mississippians in this?
Yeah, for the first year, 35% of this company has to be Mississippi owned.
You know, the elephant in the room here, and people don't talk about this that much because all of these rules and regulations and hours differ from every other state. Some are a lot, some are different. But this whole thing is thrown into a quagmire if the federal government just happened to meet and also the House and Senate decided, okay, we're going to legalize this or we're just going to get out of the business. What would that do to not only Mississippi but elsewhere?
You know, I think it'd be similar to a lot of our controlled substance laws, a lot of our highly regulated industries, where whatever is permissible at the state level is the law. So rather than the fear of, what happens if, we just know that the state law is what we operate under in Mississippi. So I don't think the interstate commerce would just explode. I think it'd still be very intra-state because that's what the bill says.
Well, that's a little scary, though, when you're investing a lot of money on there and you think, okay, now they could ship this in from any other place and it's going to dilute our market. So have you got some projections on what the retail sales will? We've heard that within 5 years, and some people said that's underestimated. It could be 3 years. It'll be up to $1 billion in sales, not taxes, but sales.
Well, that's a lot higher than our projections, and all our projections were based on under Initiative 65. So this would be a very different thing to look at. We're going to start looking at what the projections would be, but under 65, we were looking at somewhere around $350 million in sales after 5 years.
After 5 years. Mm-hmm. Is there going to be, from your organization, a push for an initiative once we get the new initiative and we see what the new initiative looks like? Is there going to be a push by your organization for recreational marijuana?
No.
You can guarantee us that?
I can guarantee it would not be our organization that would ever do something.
You think there
like
will be a push for recreational marijuana?
I don't know. There were a lot of pushes for that, even before the initiative process was overturned, and we weren't a part of any of those initiatives, and we're not going to be a part of any new ones.
We haven't talked about the testing. That's become a big deal now. How's testing as far as how are you guys going to handle that as far as the association?
Well, we've got two companies in the association that are looking at testing, and they're still unsure of what they're actually going to be testing for because that'll be done by the Department of Health.
The limits. One quick other question here. What happened? As a matter of fact, there are two questions, so can you hang on for another second? I want to ask you about the banking situation in this bill.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. Cash or credit card? What can the retail establishments do? And what do the patrons who go there, the patients, I should say, can they use cash or credit, et cetera, et cetera? Final segment with Ken Newburger coming up right after this. All right, back to Ken now, and just a couple of other questions. Let's look at the banking part of this, because it's still kind of confusing, and we alluded to this as far as the feds are concerned. Maybe one of the reasons any good thing that comes out of the feds would be just to clarify this to the investors out there one way or the other. How does that look at the retail place? You go in, you have to pay cash. Can you use your card?
So there are a lot of solutions that allow you to use a card, typically a debit card, not a credit card, because it's an effective check from your account. But really, it requires a lot of back-end solutions for businesses that have come up with these solutions. They work hand-in-hand with state-chartered banks to allow customers to use safer means of paying for their product.
So what you're saying is you can use basically across the board any credit card, but it can't be a credit card. It has to use debit.
It really depends on what the business provides. You can obviously use cash, but as long as the business has a solution that can solve that for you, it can be done. It's just very hard.
Can you use crypto coins?
Well, I'm not really up to date on that.
Somebody's going to come up with that sooner or later
right.
If they haven't already.
That's right.
But as far as the businesses themselves, what is the limits? And I'm not sure how this is addressed in this bill because, again, it's overruled by the feds in one way or the other. But how is your association suggesting they handle this as far as on the business side of it?
We tell them that they need to find a state-chartered bank, not a federally chartered bank, that would be willing to bank them. They have a little bit more leeway at the state level. And that's how most states are banking medical marijuana businesses.
Does that mean any bank that does not have a FDIC?
No, they have FDIC, but that applies to a certain grouping of accounts, and at the state level, they can kind of set that aside. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah. Will this cause the emergence of specialized banks?
No, a couple people have reached out to me saying, "Hey, we're kind of interested." And I said, "Well, if you come up with a solution, call me back." And they call me back and say, "Hey, look, this is way too much regulation for us to deal with. We'd rather go talk to an already existing bank."
Thanks, but no thanks. We see the involvement of this one. What else am I missing here as far as with some questions that you get, Ken, that people are asking, and I don't want to leave without crossing those, but some questions that you might have or that you get a lot of time?
The big question that I get asked is just, when is this going to happen? And we touched on that at the very, very beginning where you asked me where we're at, and I said, I think they're coming up with a solution probably within, a week or so. So we've hit everything, really. We're just looking at the future of where business is going to be, who wants to be in the business, and how are patients actually going to get access to medical marijuana, because doctors are going to have to go through a lot of training just to get up to speed.
Not sure if this what he means by this. C-Spire text line, I don't want to grow marijuana, but I would love to use the THC butter for my product, whatever that is. I have no idea. How do the seeds get into the state? That's a
question that I think a lot of lawyers are going to have to answer, and that's not one that I can do.
Well, can I help you out on this one? I know a good lawyer that could ask that question to, and I think he is. As a matter of fact, he was chair of Judd A. I think he's now the ag commissioner. You could ask him that.
Let's ask him about that.
So, but I mean, I'm serious. I mean, that is it's a little bit of a crux in the giddy up, isn't it?
Every other state has solved the problem that has done this.
How have they solved it? This is as close to the chicken and the egg that you can get. How did they solve the problem of getting those seeds into the state?
I don't know, but you're right. It's a chicken and egg problem, but as long as the egg gets entered into the seed-to-sale system, you can track it once it's here.
As long as the egg gets into it?
The seed is put in the seed-to-sale tracking system.
But who's going to be responsible for the chicken? Chicken's got to lay the egg.
We've been debating this since the beginning of time, Paul.
20 years from now, we'll be saying why did the seed cross the road? Ken, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks
I think
for
I've taxed you as much as I possibly could. I appreciate it, sir. Look forward to a return visit.
All right.